Now we're going to talk about Geshem or Gushem. Now this is a very sensitive topic. Many people have a lot of feelings about this subject. So let's begin by saying that it is irrelevant what your feeling is about the topic. This is not a feeling topic. This is not a touchy-feely topic. No, there's no topic in Judaism that's touchy-feely. It's a matter of halacha. So what is the halacha? Is it Morid HaGoshem or Morid HaGeshem? So what does it depend on? So anybody who knows a little bit about diktuk knows that when you have a word that appears in middle of a sentence, it will be a segal. If it appears at the end of a sentence, it will be a kamatz. I mean, it's always Eretz Canaan, Eretz Canaan. Well, we'll see in Lech Lecha. Vayavar Avram ba'aretz, Eretz Canaan, Vayavoyu Arza Canaan, right? Or we know it's Pesach, unless it appears at the end of a sentence, it's Pasach. It's Mardechai, unless it appears b'soif pasuk or by asnachta, or there's one exception, that if you have a zakef katan in a pasuk that doesn't have an asnachta, the zakef katan will take the place of the asnachta, and it will be a full stop, and it will be Mardechai. That's the general rule. So the question is it Mashiv Haruach Morid HaGoshem, and that's the end of the phrase, or is it really part of a continuation of different praises of Hashem? Ata Gibar Le'elam Hashem, Mechayim Mesim Ata, Rav L'Hoshia, Mashiv Haruach Morid HaGeshem, Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed. So how do you read it? So in the Sefer Mishulchan Rabbi Yehuda Baruch, I'm just bringing this in because it's a nice short little Lomdus, and maybe it will help you remember the Shitais. In the Sefer Mishulchan Rabbi Yehuda Baruch, he brings that there's a famous pulmos. You know what the word pulmos means? Pulmos is a controversy about the word Gushem or Geshem. Is it Geshem with a segel or Gushem with a kamatz? And as he writes, many pens have broke because of this topic, meaning there's a lot written about it. Anecdotally, there's a story that a certain maskil, a student of Moses Mendelssohn, changed all the Sidurim and made it a kamatz. And it used to say before that a segal, and then some maskil changed it to kamatz. Therefore, we need to go back to how it was originally with a segal. That is what is said anecdotally. Reb Shlomo Zalman agreed that it should be Mashiach Morid HaGeshem, and also Reb Shach quoted in the Haskama for the Sefer Birchos HaChaim. So that's, and by the way, Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky, who is an expert in diktuk, also said it's Geshem. However, Reb Elyashiv said Gushem. Reb Moshe said Gushem. So in terms of the halachic weight would, in my humble opinion, be on the side of those to say Gushem. That's the opinion of Reb Elyashiv and Reb Moshe. Reb Yehuda Baruch said he has a tradition. He heard from Reb Moshe Shapiro, Reb Moshe Shmuel Shapiro, that there's a tradition, Ishmi Piyish, from Volozhin to Reb Chaim Volozhiner, that the Gra said, Mashav Aruach Umorid Ha Gushem. Gushem. Now, what's interesting is, what about this story with the maskil? I don't know. I don't think you could use stories to paskin halacha, but on the other hand, you could say like this. Maybe it used to say in some sidurim, segal, and a certain maskil, who happened to know diktuk well, saw that that was wrong, and he changed it to Gushem. Now the maskil was right. He was right. He knew diktuk. But there was a certain reactionary response that, well, oh, the maskil said Gushem, now we're going to say it wrong, Geshem. You say, really? We would do things wrong? There are many things that have been done that way. That, for instance, the de-emphasis on diktuk or the de-emphasis on learning Nevi'im was somewhat reactionary to the fact that the maskilim emphasized diktuk or emphasized the learning of Nevi'im. So maybe there was a time in history where, to preserve the authority of Torah Sheba'al Peh, it was de-emphasized. Nowadays, it's not relevant anymore. For somebody to say he doesn't learn Nevi'im because the maskilim were into Navi, so that's just unadulterated amaratzos. That's like saying, I don't learn Torah because maskilim learn Torah. Okay, you'll see what your fate will be in the afterlife with such an attitude. So basically, it's not noigeya anymore. Anyway, Rabbi Yehuda Baruch has a very interesting raya, al pi Lomdus, that it's mashiv haruach umoyred ha Gushem. You ready? He says like this. What's the difference between a segel and a kamatz? Is whether it's at the soif pasuk or in a snachta, we say kamatz. But in the middle of a pasuk, so then it's services the next word, it will be a segel. By the way, he brings rayas in Zechariah, Perek Yazayin, Pasuk Yadalet. If you look in the footnote, it says V'loy aleihem yia hagoshem, because it's at the end of a pasuk. But in this week's parsha, Vayehi hageshem al haaretz arba'im yom. Why? Because it's in the middle of a sentence. Or V'hine yadai mitzayras ka sholeg at the end of a pasuk. But hanoisein sheleg katsamer. Is it shaloyasani eved or shaloyasani aved? Shaloyasani aved. Why? It's the end of a sentence. Hamechin mitzadei gover. Boire pri ha gofen. Boire pri ha gofen. And what do Sfardim say? Sfardim are very into amen. Boire pri ha gefen amen. Amen is part of it. Some would argue. The amen is part of it. It's not a bracha without a response. Okay, so the shaila is like this. Do we treat Masharach Mard HaGoshem as a independent clause or chelek mimatbei habracha? Now, what would that depend on? Says Rabbi Yehuda Baruch, is saying Masharach HaGoshem a hazkara like Yalav Yavai? Like on Rosh Chodesh we say Yalav Yavai, on Yom Tov we say Yalav Yavai, on Shabbos we say Ritzei, and from Sukkot to Pesach we add an extra addition, Mashavrach Marid Ha Gushem, meaning if it's a separate addition, then it would be Mashavrach Marid Ha Gushem. But if it's not a Hazkara, but it's part and parcel of the bracha, then it would be Mashavrach Marid Ha Geshem. You hear the Chakira? Meaning, how should we treat Mashavrach Marid Gushem? Is it like Aninu? Is it like Yalav Yavai? Is it like Al Hanisim? We're adding now to the Shemona Esrei the phrase Mashavrach Marid Ha Gushem, and then it would be a separate clause, and then it would be a kamatz. Or during this time of the year, it's mimatbeya shetabu by chachamim. Says Rabbi Yehuda Baruch, it has to be that it's not part of the bracha, and it's a separate addition, like Ritzei and Yalav Yavai. Now, if you would have asked me, let's say last night you would have stopped me on a street corner and say, Rabbi Glatstein, how would you look at Mashavrach Marid Gushem? Do you look at it like Yalav Yavai? Would anyone here look at Mashavrach Marid Gushem as Yalav Yavai? I never would have looked at it that way. It's part of the bracha. It's a phrase of the bracha. It's not like Al Hanisim. Says Rabbi Yehuda Baruch, it's not true. If you look in Shulchan Aruch Siman Kuf Yadad Sivav, what's the halacha if you forgot Mashavrach Marid Ha Gushem and you already finished the bracha, but you didn't start Ata Gibar yet? Are you one and done? Or could you stick it in right there? Right, the halacha is, if you said, Ata Gibar Le'am Hashem, Mechaye Mesim Ata Rav Lo'ishia, Mechalka Chayim Chesam Chayim Mesim Rachim Ram Samech Nefim Roifichem Mater Sam Chayim Naso Shnei Far Michal Mechal Bagber Sam Yidam Melach Melach Meim Chayim Asmech Shom Neman Atalach Yis Mesim Baruch Ata Hashem Mechaye HaMesim Ata Gibar, you're done. If you said Ata, you're done. But what if I just said Baruch Ata Hashem Mechaye HaMesim and I didn't say Mashavrach Marid Gushem? I could say and stick in there, Mashavrach Marid Gushem Ata Gibar. You know that halacha? What? Oh, Ata Kadosh, thank you. Very good, they learn, very good. Darchi is a good yeshiva. Ata Kadosh. Right after Baruch Hashem Mechaye Mesim, if I said Ata, then I'm done. But if I didn't, I could say Mashavrach Marid Gushem. Says Rabbi Yehuda Baruch, what does that indicate about the essence of Mashavrach Marid Gushem? Is it part of Matbei Shetabu Chachamim, or is it a Hazkara Ba'alma? Must be, it's a Hazkara Ba'alma.
In the Sukkot, if you say Marid Hatal, and you forget to say Marid Haruach,
right. So Nusach Sfarad, you're saved by saying Marid Hatal. Right.
So would that change a Lomdus? Because l'chayr then...
No, because if in in Nusach Sfard, if you didn't say Machon Maggid Harakiah, you said Maratal, and you didn't say Ata Kadosh yet, would you stick in Machon Maggid Harakiah? I'm not sure. Let's say yes. I would say you maybe you would. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. So one second. Let's assume that it's not, the Lomdus is not going to change for the Nuschais. Now I would have stopped right here, and I would have said, the fact that if you say it, that if you miss it, you could say it after, that indicates it's not mimat be'ah habracha, but it's a hoisafa, right? Now, as a hoisafa, it's for sure an independent clause, and it would be, now when you say it after Baruch Hashem Chayim Esim, you would for sure say Mashra Chamar HaGoshem, that's for sure an independent clause. So you can say, oh, when you say it after, it's a hoisafa, and when you say it in the bracha, it's mimat be'ah? No. It doesn't change what it is where you say it. So just like if you say it after, it would be Mashra Chamar HaGoshem. If you say it in, that would indicate that it's Gushem. That's what I would say. That's not what he says here. He says that elsewhere. I didn't realize. He says earlier he proved from the fact that you could add it that it's not mimat be'ah habracha, but it's a haskara. But he says like this. You ready for his Lomdus? He says if you say it after the bracha, is it Geshem or Gushem? It's Gushem. And now let's say according to those opinions that if you say it in the bracha it's Geshem, then why didn't the poskim say, if the halacha is that when you say it in the bracha it's Geshem, then all the poskim should jump up and say, when the Shulchan Aruch says that you say it after, by the way, you could say it after, just make sure you pronounce it differently and say Gushem. Why didn't all the poskim say, why didn't the Magen Avram or the Taz or any of the Achronim say, by the way, that which the Shulchan Aruch says that if you miss Mashra Maggid HaGeshem, you can make it up by saying it after, but by the way, if you're going to say it after the bracha, make sure you pronounce it correctly, because now it's not Geshem, now it's Gushem. You know why? Because you never say Geshem, it's always Gushem. That's why none of the poskim needed to say that. If you say it after, switch the pronunciation. So basically, there are two rayas that it's Gushem. Number one, the fact that you could say it after indicates that it's a separate hazkara and it's not mimat be'ah habracha. That's not what he says over here. What he says is, since if you say it after it's Gushem, then why wouldn't any other poskim say, by the way, even though you're always saying Geshem, when you say it after it's Gushem. So I don't know if that's such a strong raya. Maybe they figure that we're experts in diktuk, and we would know that if you say it after, you have to change the havara. In any event, if you're davening over here from that amud, it's Mashav Haruach Umarid HaGoshem. By the way, now what's interesting is, in the Art Scroll Siddur, by Tfilas Geshem, when the Chazan announces and they establish, by the way, that the Iker Nusach is Geshem v'yeshoimrim Goshem, but when you daven for Tfilas Geshem, there's only one Nusach. You know this? Sha'atu Hashem Elokeinu Mashav Haruach Umarid HaGoshem. Nobody says Geshem. So the irony is, it's not really Tfilas Geshem. It's Tfilas Goshem. Nobody says you should say Geshem when you're davening on Shmini Atzeres. No, there's no, except for the Maslik Midvash Siddur. They say Geshem. I don't know why. Anyway, so that's a little bit about Mashra Chamar HaGoshem. Okay. And now